On this episode, we'll find out who was still standing in the NFL playoffs when the final gun sounded, a national champion was decided in the New Year's Day bowl games, highlights from the NBA All-Star Game and more on the January 1982 edition of Back in Time Sports. After two exciting wildcard matchups that opened the NFL playoffs in December, with the home teams just falling short of completing incredible comebacks, surely the same pattern wouldn't continue for the divisional round. Or would it? In the AFC, San Diego and Miami were not only up for the challenge, but decided to up the ante. San Diego did their part, jumping out to a 24-0 lead by the end of the first quarter, thanks to 97 passing yards by Dan Fouts, a punt return for a touchdown, an interception deep in Miami's territory, and recovering a kickoff that somehow went untouched by Miami. Just when it looked like the Dolphins were going to get blown out of the water, they replaced starting quarterback David Woodley with veteran backup Don Strock, who promptly led them to 10 straight points. With 6 seconds left in the first half, the Dolphins pulled off a perfectly executed hook and lateral play to cut the lead to 7 and fire up the Orange Bowl crowd. Miami's momentum continued into the third quarter, tying the game at 31 on a 50-yard touchdown pass. Late in the quarter, the Dolphins picked off a Dan Fouts pass and after a well-timed lateral, returned the ball to San Diego's 15-yard line and punched the ball in to take the lead in the game for the first time. But after Miami got the ball back and were in scoring range again, San Diego took back the momentum. With less than 5 minutes in the game, the Chargers forced a turnover and equalized the score after a drive that ended in a pass that was thrown up for grabs but ended up in the arms of James Brooks. With a minute left in the game, the Dolphins threw an interception, but it was fumbled back to Miami to keep their drive alive. Miami lined up a game-winning 43-yard field goal, but Kellen Winslow was able to deflect the ball just enough for the kick to fall short, forcing overtime. On San Diego's first possession in overtime, the Chargers drove the field and had first and goal at Miami's 9-yard line. They decided to kick the field goal on second down, but the ball sailed wide. The Dolphins maneuvered into field goal range themselves, but once again their kick was blocked. San Diego drove the field one last time and on a first down at Miami's 10-yard line finally converted a 29-yard field goal to advance to the conference championship. There were a ton of records set in the game, including backup quarterback Don Strock coming off the bench and throwing for over 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. But perhaps the most impressive was by Kellen Winslow, who had a playoff record 13 catches for 166 yards as well as a blocked field goal. During the game, Winslow was treated for a pinched nerve in his shoulder, dehydration, and a gash in his lip that required 3 stitches, and was helped off the field by his teammates after what was surely one of the greatest games in playoff history. The other game on January 2nd was nowhere near as exciting, and we'll just say that Dallas beat Tampa Bay 38-0, with the Cowboy defense harassing Buccaneer quarterback Doug Williams all over the field. The following day, the excitement picked back up after Cincinnati took a fourth quarter lead of 28-21, with rookie Chris Collinsworth scoring on a 16-yard touchdown catch. Buffalo had the ball at the Bengals' 21-yard line with 3 minutes left and with a chance to tie the game. Bills quarterback Joe Ferguson appeared to complete a fourth down pass that was good enough for a first down, but Buffalo was called for a delay of game penalty. To make matters worse, it was right after Buffalo had called a timeout. On the next play, the Cincinnati defense held and the Bengals moved on. In San Francisco, third-year quarterback Joe Montana led the 49ers to victory in his first playoff game, throwing for over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns against the New York Giants. San Francisco cornerback Ronnie Lott had 2 interceptions in the game, returning the second for a touchdown to put the game away. An innovation in the broadcast was the introduction of the CBS chalkboard, which allowed commentators Pat Summerall and John Madden to draw freehand sketches over replays of the action. The conference championships kicked off with the Chargers traveling to Cincinnati. A week after playing in the heat of Miami, San Diego had to adjust to the opposite extreme, a temperature of -9 degrees and a wind chill factor of -50 in a game that was called the Freezer Bowl. After recovering a fumble on a kickoff, Cincinnati built a 10-0 first quarter lead. San Diego cut the deficit to 10-7 after a Fouts to Winslow touchdown, but that was as close as the Chargers would get. San Diego had the ball inside the Bengals' 40-yard line 5 more times, but were stopped cold as turnovers and a missed field goal prevented them from scoring any more points, and the freezer door was shut on a 27-7 Bengals win. In the NFC, it was a comparably balmy 54 degrees at Candlestick Park between San Francisco and Dallas, with tickets selling for between $15 and $20. The Cowboys, who had won 3 straight in the playoffs against the 49ers, were 3-point favorites, despite losing to San Francisco 45-14 in Week 6. The 49ers got the lead early on an 8-yard touchdown by Joe Montana, but the lead would change hands 6 times by the fourth quarter, with the Cowboys holding a 27-21 advantage. San Francisco fans were hoping there was one more lead change left when the 49ers got the ball on their own 11-yard line with less than 5 minutes to play. After 13 plays, it was third down on the Cowboys' 6-yard line with 58 seconds left in the game when Joe Montana rolled to his right and threw a jump ball to Dwight Clark in the back of the end zone. To the delight of the sellout crowd, Clark got his hands on the ball and managed to pull it in for the winning score. The 49ers overcame 6 turnovers to beat the Cowboys and set up a date with the Bengals in Super Bowl XVI. Heading into Super Bowl XVI, there were plenty of storylines to go around. San Francisco head coach Bill Walsh spent 8 years with Cincinnati as an assistant under legendary coach Paul Brown, but resigned after he was passed over for the Bengals job in 1976. It was in Cincinnati that he honed his West Coast offense, which emphasizes quick, short, high-efficiency horizontal passes to stretch the defense. Both the 49ers and Bengals were coming off 6-10 records the previous season, and both had long odds to win the Super Bowl before the season started. Cincinnati is led by veteran quarterback Ken Anderson, who led the league in quarterback rating, and San Francisco by Joe Montana, the emerging young star who led the 49ers to a 21-3 victory over the Bengals in Week 14. Tickets for the game averaged $40 each for the fans in attendance at the Pontiac Silverdome, which was broadcast on CBS with Pat Summerall and John Madden on the call, and a 30-second commercial costing $324,000. Several commercials featured former or current players, including Dick Butkus, Bubba Smith, Joe Theismann, and Deacon Jones. One of the 81,000 ticket holders was Barry Bremen, who was no ordinary fan. Bremen is known as the Great Imposter and has crashed many sporting events, including wearing an NBA uniform and taking a few pre-game warm-up shots in an NBA All-Star game, shagging flies at a Major League Baseball All-Star game, even making it to the sidelines during a game posing as a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader. This year, he handed his Super Bowl ticket to the gatekeeper dressed as the San Diego Chicken, but he was asked to remove the head of his costume and was recognized. The game opened with Detroit native Diana Ross performing the national anthem, and the 49ers, who were 1-point favorites, receiving and then fumbling the opening kick. Turnovers would be a big factor in the game, and an interception by Dwight Hicks kept the Bengals off the scoreboard. Joe Montana led the 49ers on 3 long scoring drives in the first half, opening up a 17-0 lead. With 15 seconds left before halftime, the Bengals fumbled a kickoff, which gave San Francisco another 3 points and a 20-0 lead at the break. Cincinnati dominated the third quarter, but only had 7 points to show for it after the 49ers came up with a big goal line stand late in the quarter. The Bengals would close the gap to 20-14, but the 49ers responded with a field goal to extend the lead to 9 with 5 minutes left in the game. On the first play of the next possession, the 49ers defense rose to the occasion again with an interception in Bengals territory, which led to another field goal. The Bengals managed to score a touchdown with 16 seconds left, but the onside kick was covered by San Francisco, and Joe Montana took a knee to secure the 49ers' first Super Bowl win by a score of 26-21, with 20 of San Francisco's points coming off Bengals turnovers. The game had the highest television rating in Super Bowl history and was the third most watched TV show ever, only behind the Who Shot JR episode of Dallas and the final episode of Roots. Cincinnati quarterback Ken Anderson did come out on top of Joe Montana in another duel, winning the NFL MVP award. Rookie Lawrence Taylor of the New York Giants was the Defensive Player of the Year, narrowly beating Joe Klecko, who likely split some votes with teammate Mark Gastineau, who finished third. Klecko and Gastineau both finished with 20 sacks on the season. NFL salaries increased 14.5% this year to an average of $90,102, and the average team payroll passed the $5 million mark for the first time. Quarterbacks were again the highest paid, with an average of $160,037. Running backs and defensive linemen both averaged over $90,000. Receivers, offensive line, and linebackers averaged over $85,000, defensive backs just under $80,000, and kickers just over $65,000. According to the NFL Players Association, the increases are not keeping up with the increases in league revenue. The current contract between the union and the NFL expires in July, and the union is asking that salaries be tied to a percentage of the team's gross revenue. All of the AP top 10 teams in college football were in action in New Year's Day bowl games, with the exceptions of number 5 SMU and number 9 Miami, who were both on probation and not eligible for a bowl. First up was number 6 Texas taking on number 3 Alabama in the Cotton Bowl. Alabama had slim hopes for a national championship with a win, but those hopes were dashed by the Longhorns, who scored 14 points in the fourth quarter and picked off an Alabama pass at the 1-yard line with less than 2 minutes left to seal their comeback win 14-12. The Fiesta Bowl made its first appearance on New Year's Day with a matchup between number 7 Penn State and number 8 USC. Both teams had been ranked number 1 during the season before each losing 2 games. The Nittany Lions jumped out to a 7-0 lead 15 seconds into the game and never looked back. They held Marcus Allen to 85 yards on 30 carries and cruised to a 26-10 win. Penn State now has won 3 straight bowl games, including the last 2 in the Fiesta. Iowa was a 3-point favorite over Washington in the Rose Bowl, but it was the Huskies that dominated the game, winning 28-0, which was the first shutout in the Rose Bowl since 1953. Washington coach Don James has taken the Huskies to 3 Rose Bowl games in the last 5 years, winning 2 of them. Third-year Iowa coach Hayden Fry took the team to their first bowl game in 21 years and seems to have the Hawkeyes moving in the right direction. The national champion would almost certainly be decided in the final 2 primetime games, the Sugar Bowl featuring the defending champions and number 2 ranked Georgia against number 10 Pitt, and the Orange Bowl featuring number 1 Clemson taking on number 4 Nebraska. In the Sugar, Georgia took a 7-3 halftime lead on a touchdown by Herschel Walker. The scoring picked up early in the second half, with Pitt scoring on a 30-yard touchdown pass by Marino to take the lead. Then Georgia and Herschel Walker took control, getting to the end zone to retake the lead. The lead would change hands 2 more times, and Georgia held a 20-17 lead with 42 seconds left in the game. On 4th and 5, Pitt took the lead for good on a 33-yard pass from Dan Marino to win the game 24-20 and ensure a new champion. Despite being the number 1 team, Clemson was a 4-point underdog against Nebraska in the Orange Bowl. The Cornhuskers used a halfback pass by Mike Rozier to jump out in front 7-3, but Clemson fought back to take a 12-7 halftime lead. The Tigers' defense was looking strong, and Clemson seemed to be pulling away with a 22-7 lead in the fourth quarter when Roger Craig ran in a touchdown for Nebraska, and a 2-point conversion pulled the Cornhuskers to within a touchdown. The Tigers' defense was able to regain control over the last 9 minutes, and Clemson won the game 22-15 to complete an undefeated season and win their first national championship. This year, the Heisman Trophy went to USC running back Marcus Allen, who was the first player in NCAA history to run for over 2,000 yards. Allen easily defeated Georgia running back Herschel Walker, BYU quarterback Jim McMahon, and Pitt quarterback Dan Marino. Running backs have dominated the Heisman Trophy voting over the last decade. The last quarterback to win the award was Pat Sullivan of Auburn in 1971. If the recent success of Heisman Trophy winners in the NFL is any indication, Allen should be a high pick in this April's NFL draft. Earl Campbell, Billy Sims, and George Rogers have all been drafted first overall, and Tony Dorsett was a second overall pick. Rogers, who was last year's winner, led the NFL in rushing and was just named NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. Dorsett was the NFL's second leading rusher, and Sims was third. Campbell led the league in rushing the 3 previous seasons, which were his first 3 years in the NFL. A total of $14.8 million was paid to the teams that competed in the New Year's Day bowl games, with $5.6 million coming just from the Rose Bowl. Independent teams like Penn State and Pitt get to keep their entire payout, while teams in conferences share their earnings with the other conference teams. After the bowl games ended, Texas A&M lured University of Pittsburgh head coach Jackie Sherrill away with a contract that made plenty of waves. Sherrill will make about $280,000 per year in salary and benefits for at least 6 years, by far the largest contract for a head coach in college football. A&M had unsuccessfully offered Michigan's Bo Schembechler a 10-year, $2.25 million contract. The next highest paid coach may be Barry Switzer of Oklahoma, who is reported to be making around $150,000 per year. Sherrill has already brought R.C. Slocum back to College Station as his defensive coordinator. Slocum held that position for the Aggies in 1979 and 1980 before spending this year as defensive coordinator for USC. The first half of the NBA season concluded with the All-Star Game at the end of January. The defending champion Boston Celtics held the best record at the break, and the Los Angeles Lakers, with new coach Pat Riley, held the lead in the Western Conference. The Cleveland Cavaliers, who are already on their 3rd coach this year, are struggling with only 8 wins so far. Seattle appears to have made the best turnaround, ending with a record of 34-48 last year and already have 29 wins about halfway through this season. Although it's really just more of a return to form, having made the Western Conference Finals the 3 previous seasons and winning the NBA Finals just 3 years ago. In the final fan voting for the All-Star Game, Julius Erving led all players with over 432,000 votes. Larry Bird was second, and rookie Isiah Thomas was third. Thomas was one of 9 first-time All-Stars, including fellow rookies Buck Williams and Kelly Tripucka. Among the starters for the West was 6-time MVP Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who was playing in his 12th All-Star game. The game was played at the new Brendan Byrne Arena in East Rutherford, New Jersey, and both coaches, Bill Fitch of the Celtics and Pat Riley of the Lakers, did a good job of distributing minutes, with all players seeing at least 10 minutes of action. Hometown favorite Buck Williams of the Nets made a good showing on the boards, pulling down 10 rebounds. The game was close throughout, with Seattle's Gus Williams of the West leading all scorers with 22 points and added 9 assists. And in a game with relatively poor free throw shooting, Williams was also perfect from the line. Magic Johnson also shot well from the line and had 16 points, 7 assists, and 4 rebounds. Julius Erving gave the crowd a highlight, driving the baseline for a memorable dunk. In the fourth quarter, Fitch leaned on his trio of Boston players down the stretch, with Larry Bird scoring 12 of his 19 points in the final period, leading the East to a 120-118 win. He was also the top rebounder in the game and was named MVP. But he wasn't the only Bird with a good performance. The San Diego Chicken was also on hand to entertain the crowd during the timeouts. Major League Baseball announced the results of its Hall of Fame voting, and as expected, 2 first-time nominees were elected. Hank Aaron and Frank Robinson were the only 2 players selected for 1982, with Juan Marichal narrowly missing the 75% needed. Aaron is baseball's all-time home run leader and nearly became the first unanimous selection, falling only 9 votes short. Aaron began his career in 1954 and quickly established himself as one of the best hitters in the game. Even without counting his 755 home runs, he still had over 3,000 hits in his career. And in addition to the home run title, is also the all-time RBI leader with 2,297. He was so good that in his 23-year career, he was selected to 25 All-Star games. Yes, those numbers are correct, which seems impossible. Of course, there is the mostly forgotten fact that from 1959 to 1962, 2 All-Star games were played each year. Frank Robinson is number 4 on the all-time home run list, behind only Aaron, Babe Ruth, and Willie Mays. He was the Rookie of the Year in 1956, achieved the Triple Crown in 1966, won 2 MVP awards and 2 World Series titles. In addition to his playing career, he also had a successful career as a manager and is currently the manager of the San Francisco Giants. The big names on the free agent market this year were 2 New York Yankee stars, Reggie Jackson and Ron Guidry. Guidry had a breakout year in 1978, winning the Cy Young Award with a record of 25-3, an ERA of 1.74, and 248 strikeouts. He ended up re-signing with the Yankees on a 5-year contract worth nearly $1 million per year. The Yankees failed to re-sign Reggie Jackson, though, who often had a contentious relationship with owner George Steinbrenner. Jackson signed with the California Angels on a 4-year contract worth about $700,000 per year, but has the opportunity to make much more if the Angels hit certain attendance goals. Since 1965, in Major League Baseball, there has been a secondary draft of players in January for players that had been drafted previously but did not sign, or players that graduated from high school or college mid-year, or players in junior college that had dropped out of 4-year colleges. The top 3 picks this year were Cash Beauchamp, Troy Afenier, and Kirby Puckett. First up in the Random Sports section is NFL news. Commissioner Pete Rozelle submitted figures to Congress indicating that the annual net profit for each of the league's 28 teams was $1.4 million in 1980. Revenues were $13.3 million on average, with $6.2 million in ticket sales and $6 million in television revenue. The NFL is trying to convince Congress to view the league as a single entity of 28 partners rather than a joint venture of 28 individual competitors. If they do, they will likely have the upper hand in the legal battle against Al Davis, who is trying to move the Oakland Raiders to Los Angeles. Mike Ditka was hired as the new head coach of the Chicago Bears after spending 9 seasons as an assistant coach for the Dallas Cowboys. As a player, Ditka was the NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year for the Bears in 1961 and won an NFL championship with Chicago in 1963. In the press conference, he said, "I believe that everyone has a destiny in life, and mine is with the Chicago Bears." In college basketball, number 1 North Carolina lost its first game of the season in late January to Wake Forest. The Tar Heels were the top team in the preseason poll and had spent 8 weeks at number 1, led by junior James Worthy, sophomore Sam Perkins, and freshman Michael Jordan. Missouri takes over the top spot as the last undefeated major college team. Earlier in the NHL season, Doug Smales scored a goal 5 seconds into a game. Mark Napier of the Montreal Canadiens decided to go one better and scored 2 goals in the first 38 seconds of a game. In other news, the Edmonton Oilers are the top team in the NHL this year, and their star Wayne Gretzky is on pace to smash a number of records. Gretzky set the points record last year with 164 and already has 146 this year through only 55 games. He's also only 9 goals behind Phil Esposito's record of 76 and already has 7 hat tricks on the season, including 3 4-goal games and a 5-goal game. That's all for January 1982. Looking ahead to the next episode, we'll cover the NCAA basketball tournament, the Stanley Cup playoffs, the NFL draft, and plenty more on the spring 1982 edition of Back in Time Sports.